Welcome to the Direct Sales Masterclass. I'm McKinley Oswald, the president of the Direct Sales Division here at Verb Technology. Our guest today is Meredith Berkich. She is the Chief Growth Officer at Jenkon. And Meredith and I have been friends for a long time. Her story is fascinating because she joined and built over a decade a very large direct sales organization, was very successful. She then transferred what her knowledge base was and went and worked on the corporate side, building big brands, overcoming a lot of challenges, being a real asset to, several different companies. And then now she currently is a supplier on the technology side. So today we're going to talk about the importance of communication with the field, how to overcome landmines and challenges that you may have, and then also why technology is important today for your company. Meredith, thanks for joining us. We're so excited to have you here today to be able to talk a little bit about the industry, about technology, and about some other practical things that our listeners, I think, are going to find very pertinent to their business. So thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here, McKinley. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, you're welcome. Now, I'm excited to talk with Meredith because Meredith is one of the few people in the industry who has experience in the field building a massively successful business, not just hey, I at one time signed up, but 11 years, top organization, also on the corporate side, and a lot of experience there. And then also now on the supplier side in the technology front, which is so important. And so today's conversation, I think, is going to be really fascinating. So Meredith, let's start off first with how you were introduced to the industry. So take us back to that point. I know at the time you'd worked prior to having a baby, right? And then at that point, took some time off from working. But what was it when you first started in the direct sales industry that attracted you to direct sales?
Well, I think it was the freedom and flexibility for sure. Stepping out of corporate America to raise a family. It's kind of a shock at first. It actually wasn't planned to go that direction. But when the baby was born and the nanny handoff happened, it was like, oh, this isn't happening.
A shock.
No, this isn't happening. It was a shock to the system. All right. But then going to a single income, family, which also was not planned for, after about a year or so, just really was looking for that out, looking for just a way to have some adult conversations, in the evenings and really
just diapers, right? And baby stuff.
Right. Nothing wrong with that. I just love the diaper talk and, the spit, on the coat and all that. But I was looking for something, just even a way to just have a little extra money. Right. I mean, I really wasn't looking for fame and fortune. I just wanted to be able to go out to a nice dinner with my husband, once a month or, buy a nice pair of shoes. I just wanted a little spending money of my own. So I didn't have a grand vision, but I found direct selling. And saw, this is a way to just get a little bit, but flexible again around my priorities and my time.
Yeah, and I love that about direct sales because that I think is also where we've come to. It's kind of recircled. We went through a phase where it was mansions and Lamborghinis and checks and right. Sure. I don't think it was great for the industry, but really at the end of the day, the best part of direct sales is, hey, I can earn $300-$400, help pay for a vacation, go somewhere nice, for dinner. And that for me is what the industry is all about. So let's talk about that. You spent 11 years building successful organizations, right? And so building that team, what was it that you found that drove that success? What were the systems? What were the tools like? What were those things that helped you to grow that organization?
Well, I'd say it was heart. It really is about caring because I think at the root of it all, right? People, they need to be appreciated. They need to feel valued. They need to feel important and special. And I think it was Mary Kay that once said, just what are the two signs that people wear? Make me feel special and what's in it for me, but so I think the make me feel special piece, I love that. I just loved helping people that really didn't get a lot. I know at the time in Washington State, the big survey came out and they said, what is your number one complaint about working for the state? And, funny enough, it wasn't vacation. It wasn't money. It was about being recognized for a job well done. And I remember I really took that to heart. And I think really applying that across my organization and my downline, really, really helped us because everybody felt that they wanted to stick around and we had really high retention, like 85% annual retention of a team that grew to the masses. And it was that little bit of contribution from each person that really, created a very sustainable business for me and for our team.
No, and I think that's the key part, right? Where you have the contradictory part of direct sales, which, everyone's had that story, right? And those inside and outside the industry of someone who is overly pushy. You and I were chatting recently about a study that was done recently about direct sales. So maybe talk about that, that side of direct sales that is pushy and why, that perception, overcoming that in building an organization. It's much more about what you talked about, that Mary Kay quote about making someone feel important, making them find that value, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I love the Direct Selling Education Foundation and the work that Gary Huggins and the team do over there. It's really amazing. And I just encourage anybody that's watching this, executives in particular, try to at least get on that mailing list. It's a great resource. But I loved a conversation that they had this week with some of the fellows where they were talking about the differences in some survey work they had recently done between retail, traditional retail, and direct selling. And they were kind of talking about the benefits, the pros and cons, what we did well, what we didn't do well in direct selling versus, retail as well, their SWOT analysis, as it were. But what still continues to permeate into direct selling is that image of being overly pushy, not listening. And funny enough, the one word that stuck out and that was really a standout word, but it stuck out to me was the word empathy. And because I always think of direct selling, and I think of what you just asked, that question, how did you build your organization and really empower other people to do the same? And it's about empathy. And it's like, why would that be our number one criticism, and perception that people have about us, that we're not empathetic? And I think that it's cultural, certainly, but in growing a team, those kind of stats really shout out to people that's going to be our biggest, overcomer that we need to do to stay relevant. And again, all of the statistics that came out in that study, taking a look at what is the future of direct selling, our direction around empathy is going to be a major thrust, not only for corporate executives, but how does that then, really be part of the culture and part of the fiber of your organization that's going to really help us win over retail, who really is the key competitor.
Yeah, and I think that's a key part where the successful teams that I've seen, and I'm sure that you've seen as well, the leaders who succeed, the organizations that grow, the companies that grow, they have that empathy, right? Mm-hmm. Network marketing at its core is a relationship business. And as you add that value, just like you were saying, that quote from Mary Kay, where they want to know what's in it for them, not only from a financial standpoint, but the community standpoint, the relationship, the value, the personal growth. And at the end of the day, also products matter. And that's a key part where customers now expect that kind of a relationship with the company. And the beauty of network marketing and direct sales is that it provides that. They can have that personal connection. And we'll talk about this in a bit, but I think retail companies are seeing that part of direct selling and starting to try to incorporate that into what they're doing, which is scary because that for decades has been the strength of direct sales. And now retail companies are saying, hey, we want to create this relationship. We want to create this, this connection, if you will. And so super important on that side.
Yes.
Let's transition now to corporate, because this is a key part and it's a perfect segue into that, where you worked at corporate after, stopping building your organization for a time, right? You worked with your husband, but then you entered back in to take a little bit of what you had learned. And there were a lot of lessons over a decade, I'm sure, that you started applying on the corporate side. So let's talk about that. What were some of the challenges? What were some of the things that you've been seeing in your experience in building a group that you were able to apply on the corporate side?
Yeah, great questions, great questions, and great line of thought too as well. I think we're talking so much right now about diversity, in corporate America and organizations, in business, in life, right, and in society, but a lot of that is that kind of that what they call internal diversity. How, where was I born? What color is my skin? What is my gender? What is, all of the things that line up to fall under that diversity category. And what doesn't get talked about a lot is that external diversity, right? Which is, where did we go to school? What do we learn? What experientially have we accomplished in our life as far as just racking up, all of those valuable interactions and learnings. And so when we take a look at the diversity of it, sometimes I think it's not really taken into account on how important it is and how important it is to line your organization internally and in the field as well, to have that balance of people that that come from different, they come from corporate America, maybe traditional business, maybe J&J, P&G, or do they come from direct selling? At what levels? What was their role? What what were their functional areas, and so to speak. And so I think in the beginning, even later, when we went public and working with board members that didn't understand direct selling and whatnot, it always was like you had to point out your value, to say it is valuable to have people from direct selling, especially ones that have walked, in the steps and the shoes of a leader, building a business and overcoming all the challenges that means, because it's not easy, it's not simple. And so I think that was one of the things I encountered, was that some people really valued it and saw it immediately, and other people were like, oh, and they almost want to discount, opinions. Sure. And you used to be a field person, one of those, and sometimes it was actually shocking, to kind of blow your hair back moments on that attitude. It's like, guys, you really have somebody here that could save you probably a lot of heartache. If you would maybe listen to any of the people in the room that have actually built a business, because, we speak differently, and our outlook is different. Our paradigm is different. And just we see it through a different lens.
Exactly. Factor, right. Gives that lens that you're able to understand better, where we talked about how sometimes corporate executives, they'll get in a room and they'll make a decision without putting on that distributor hat or thinking it over. And then they have no idea almost how to fix it because they haven't thought that through. So let's talk about that, where I think part of the strategy of what I've seen you do, we were at an event together. We talked about this yesterday, where one of my distinct memories of you that I was like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing, not only presenter, but leader in you, where there were some challenges at the time with the company you were working with, and you found ways to really settle the field, help them to understand that you heard them. And some of that relates back to, the importance of communication, which I think is huge for companies to be able to avoid potential landmines. So let's talk about that based on your experience that you had in the field. On the corporate side, what advice would you give to people on how to improve the communication with the field when they do have, those trials or those moments?
Absolutely. And we all have them, that's something, clearly we know, McKinley. It's like, we know you're going to change a comp plan, you're going to change a business model. And right now change is everywhere and everybody is reeling from it. The whole digital, the experience and we need to have this revolution or this evolution or this, ideation. We got to figure it all out. So everybody has been scrambling now for 2 years, figuring out how to manage that change, really, which is really at the heart of the communication question. And I remember, the instance that you're speaking about, and couldn't mention many more, but that one in particular, I was coming in late in the game. A big decision had been made, a big decision that involved the complete, customer experience, the consultant experience, and I could see very clearly that it was going off the cliff because the communication had not been managed effectively, and it really wasn't anybody's fault per se. They were very, very busy, getting everything ready for this massive change, and nobody was minding the communication channel or the change management strategy, right? So actually, I put in a call to the CEO, brilliant CEO, and I said, I know I've only been here a week, and I don't want you to get the wrong impression, of me at this point, but if we don't stop that project right now and put it off for a few months until we can manage some of the communication pieces, we're going to spend a year cleaning up the aftermath of this. And I damage control clearly. And I felt at the time, he's going to think I'm crazy. I've been here for a week and this is 6 months worth of work. And what is she doing? She's a nut. But he knew I was really speaking from earnest, and he's very intuitive leader, good EQ. And he just said, okay. And he says, well, what should we do? I said, we need to hire, a specialist that's going to come in and really manage, the change on certain other levels. But then we need to lay out a whole, 3-month communication strategy, and we need to start with the leaders. And so sometimes it is a matter of really sensing it and being intuitive that this is not going well. Yeah. And rather than just, okay, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to forge ahead. And that's a sign of a good leader, right? Knowing when they have to pivot, and sometimes knowing that you got to step back, even though there's so much work or time and money has been put into this project, stop.
The pivot can be hard, right?
It can be hard. And communication.
A lot of times it's like, no, let's just force it.
Crazy.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It takes courage to do that. And, hats off to that CEO. I know him well.
Yes. Yes. Phenomenal leader.
Leader that it takes. So let's talk about some of the key communication things. We talked about that, yesterday. What are some of the things in communication? Because I coach a boys soccer team, 8th graders, and I tell them all the time, guys, there's 7 different ways to say something. 6 of them you probably shouldn't, right? Let's find the right way to say this, and it comes down to tone, attitude, script, right? So let's talk through some of those key communication factors first that you found that can help corporate people in communicating to the field.
Great. And I think that there's so many wonderful models. And I know a lot of the people, there's brilliant people listening to this broadcast right now. They're probably, oh yeah, I've got a whole change thing down. But I think over time, and I've had to manage a lot of changes in compensation, taking companies public, or one company in particular public that was not used to that. And that's a whole kind of shock, for the field and what changes. So I've managed some pretty significant, changes through the years. And I would boil it probably down into really kind of 5 components that are mine. And again, they're little pieces and nuggets from me. But the first one is really pulling together that group. And you and I, this because obviously the business that you're in, the business that I'm in, technology represents a major change and major adjustments on so many levels. And you all know this, and everybody listening probably knows this as well. But a technology change is a big one, right? And so the first one that you have to look at really is pulling together that group. I know that one of our clients right now that's cutting over, the business has been in around for decades. It's a true legacy company, and they're cutting over to a brand new experience, for their sales force and their leaders. And so, but it's really getting that buy-in. We know we need it. We know we must have it. We talk about, we as corporate people, we as suppliers, we are not responsible to build the business. What we're in the business of is building leaders, empowering leaders, giving them the tools to succeed. They are the ones that are going to build the business, right? So from that and getting all those people together, who is that core group going to be? 8, 10, 12 people.
And it's a mixture, right? It can't be 10 of the same people, right? You've got leaders who have 100%. Been around and may just be managing. There's others who maybe the Facebook, but aren't actively building. Then you have those that are in the trenches. We always try to do that when we do beta groups with our launches. We say, hey, find a wide variety, because we want to know of all the different types, because otherwise, if you just get one type, you may have someone who's not even building, and the tool or the change may not even impact them. Whereas, Jane in Wichita, who's in the trenches, it may have a massive impact on her business. Sure. So I think that's a key part of taking that feedback, right? And talk a little bit about, this was something that you told me you've had good experience with, where you take the feedback, but it's not a promise that you're going to implement everything this group.
Right. And I always like to lead when you launch those beta groups, right? When it all starts before the change is coming and the communication is all laid out. When you sit that leadership group down, you really need to say, this is a collaborative partnership, but you are here as advisors. This is your advisors. Okay. Because at the end of the day, the company needs to make the decision that makes sense on a lot of different levels that you may not even be involved in, and nor do we want you to be involved in, because you need to focus on what we need you, that only you can do, which is build relationships and inspire and cast vision, be vision casters and build trust and belief. But at this point, it's an advisory role that you're serving, not a dictatorship here. So I think that establishing the ground rules is very helpful, and then reminding them throughout the process of the communications and the change that you're having to implement, of reminding out. Now, remember, because, I've seen it happen. I'm sure I've been guilty more than once of it where I listen too well, and then they walk away thinking that it's now, okay, she's going to do it. And then they speak it to their teams, because of course they, even though they're not supposed to talk about it, of course they do, because it's the inside skinny, and it shows, it gets respect for them. Yeah.
No,
so
I think
you're right. Establishing it.
Feedback, and then I guess the next step that you talk about, right, is you then have to communicate it. Going back to our communication point, communicate first the why. So talk through that point. After you gather the feedback and you make the change, why is it important to start there with explaining the why?
Yes, again, and explaining it to this leadership group, because then you can hone your message so that by the time it goes out to the next layer of leadership and then the masses, right? Kind of in that cone, of communication, right? So you want to start with, why do we have to change? Most of the time they already know. Okay. What is the change? What is it that we're going to be doing? And what is the impact that it's going to have? Because, they may see it, oh, you're going to do this, but this is going to cut this level of my pay, or this is going to change this aspect of my life. But here is what you're going to get instead. So it's kind of like the benefits, so that if you take something away, you can demonstrate, the give back, right? And then it's like of course, the next question in their mind, okay, well, what is that? What is that? And how is that going to impact me? How is that going to impact my business? So you have to be ready to walk them through. And then, of course, the when, is the big thing, the timeline, and in that timeline, it has to be, you've got to give yourself time for change. It's when you rush the changes.
Yep.
That's really when you wreak havoc on your field and create that distraction mode. And as we know, time and distraction, the two enemies of direct selling, right? So that's when you go into this. All right, when and how? What is the timeline? Giving time for transition, grandfathering, whatever needs to happen. And then how do you measure it at the end of the day? So once it's all laid out and you're walking it through and you're ongoing, how do we measure the success, and how do we continue to communicate? Remember, this is why we change, because it's painful, right? It's painful for months. And sometimes I think I've seen many teams get to the end of a big implementation, a big change, a big cutover. And then everybody goes, whew, I'm so stinking relieved. Let's get on with our life. But then the sales forces out there say, but because in their head, they've been doing it a certain way for years.
Yep.
And to them, it isn't give me this new thing and then leave me just I mean, and then because that there are things they don't want to let go of and that are painful, right? That's why it's so important in that strategy after to remind them, this is how it's working, and getting those key people, that first group, to come in and say, look at how my team is growing. Look at how this change is impacting. Look at how this is benefiting, and trying to get them to focus on the win. Because of course, the first thing they want to do is curl up into a ball and go back. I want my old system back.
I want this back. Yep. No, and we've all seen it. And that's where the beauty of the beta group, when you can get the buy-in, they understand it. Then when it is rolled out to the field, the adoption is so much better, right? Because it's not just corporate dictating something or saying this is what's happening. You've got the buy-in originally. They've had success with it. I found it just to be so much more simple on that side. And technology can just be that way. So Let's talk a little bit now. We've seen over the past, 2 years, nearly 2 years, how much technology has impacted the industry with the pandemic and with the shutdowns and those things, right? And we had a client that we weren't doing a lot on the tech side. We were doing other things, just physical tools. And they came to us and said, look, overnight, we were asking our field to advance, 15 years in the span of 5 weeks. And at that point, it's too late, right? And so, whereas on the other side, we had a client who, they had things in place. They had a great back office. They had, a great shopping experience for customers. They had a full customer pathway. They had the app, the Verb app, to be able to build a phone-based business. They didn't skip a beat. They grew by, they doubled the business in that time, where you have those two contrasting stories where if you're not investing in technology, that's a major pain point, right? And so we talked yesterday about, that we're seeing the majority of direct sales companies are investing more, and more than half of those, are investing double. And so talk a little bit about why technology is important in this day and age for direct sales.
Oh my goodness. Wow. How much more time do we have?
Right.
Where do I start?
We could go on forever, right?
We could go on forever. But I gotta go. But no, I think that for companies, right, it starts with that decision, on who you partner with, right? And you're touching on something that's really important, which is that integration of intelligence and people who are always innovating. Oh, you look at that, obviously at Verb, and here I am at Jenkon, we're always thinking ahead and how, because when it happens, you have to be able to pivot quickly and change. But if you're starting from scratch, it's very challenging, right? So that is super, super important. And for technology, how important it is. I'm just having a flashback of, and I'm sure you were probably at this event with me as well, because most of us were there 10 years ago. It was a direct selling event, and there was a speaker on stage, and he said, the reality, folks, is that direct selling companies need to be technology companies first if they intend to survive and thrive over the decades to come. And I remember kind of looking around, and some people were like, whatever, but I'm thinking, wow, sometimes you hear something really profound and you go, And I remember, I started a company. I remember they asked me for my hiring plan for the next 3 years. And of course, as the president, blah, blah, blah. So I gave them the hiring plan. And the first hire was a VP of experience. And this was like a number of years ago. And I remember people thought I had just grown horns. They were scared. They thought that was the most ridiculous thing ever. But this time has been coming, this digital, time has been coming all along. And it just got sped up, it just obviously with what's happened in the world, dramatically sped up. So to answer your question about technology, it's where we have to compete now because, our competition, in my opinion, is we're not competing with the other person that's selling, pills, powders, potions, and lotions. If that's my product line, we're not competing with the other person over here that is selling the same, tabletop that I am. It isn't like we're competing against retail, traditional retail. And it was it really took my breath away in a bad way. It just made me feel instantly nauseous this week when the CEO of Ralph Lauren, had posted a blog or something. And he said, our number one focus this year, everything that we're putting our money, our time, our talents into looking at basically is the metaverse. And I just sat there and I instantly felt nauseated because what that means is the one thing that direct selling has had this whole time that set us apart. It's like, we don't need technology because we have personal relationships. Right. We don't need technology because, we own the belly to belly, our B2B belly to belly. And I am a proponent of it and I believe it as well. But the issue is that now, as we get into this digital world that we're in and technology, those people that used to stay at the mall and stay in their store and stay behind their counter are coming into our space. And metaverse, when you think about that digital space where all of a sudden you're interacting and moving furniture around in a picture and you're having conversations with bots and people and they're bringing a buying into a virtual buying experience. Okay. That is retail talking. Okay. Yes. They are coming and into our world. And if we do not learn that we need to compete with technology and we need to compete with a retail buying experience, we're lost, right? We're just lost because what you mentioned, who is investing? Over 50% investing in technology, double digits. Those are going to be the ones because they realize we cannot solely rely on the living room anymore because the business is on the phone. It is on the phone now. And we need to not be so far behind. And I have a really good illustration of what I mean by that, but I don't know if we have time to get there.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead. Yeah.
No, we were talking, yesterday about it, but we had an experience of the holidays where my husband was given a gift that was from a direct selling company and really had great results with it. Right. And so he was having such good results. I wanted to reorder in mid-January so that he wouldn't run out. Right. So we didn't actually know a dealer, a distributor in that company. It was kind of a fluke that we got it. So I ordered it and it literally took 3 weeks to come from Utah warehouse to our home in Washington State.
And this isn't a startup, right?
This is an established, very large legacy company. And there was no back order. There was no reason for it except for the method of shipment they chose to get it to us. So if we think for a minute as direct sellers that we can continue on that path of lackluster performance and sluggish response time, again, we will lose because we're moving in the direction of digital experience.
It goes back to that value, right? That you talked about early on where people want to know what's in it for me. What am I getting out of this? What's my relationship with the company?
Absolutely.
And like on the flip side of that, I ordered something on Amazon. One of the coaches of my son's team recommended a product. We went to Amazon at 7 p.m., ordered it. The next morning at 8 a.m., it was on my porch. And so that is 13 hours and it was delivered. And so that's the experience that we're competing with, where now we've got to make sure that direct sales companies are doing that. I want to talk a little bit now where when you made your latest move over to Jenkon, I immediately thought, okay, I've got to connect with Meredith because I know something is going on there. Because one, I know, as a leader, I know as your experience that you're going to make a decision based on what we're talking about right now. You got to be a visionary, you got to be forward thinking. And so you and I had a call at that point where I said, tell me a little bit about what's going on there. And I was amazed because oftentimes perception is reality, and I always thought, legacy brands, you've got to be a huge billion-dollar company to, be a part of Jenkon. And you told me just the complete change in Robert's vision and what you guys are doing that is very, very forward thinking what we're talking about right now. So tell me a little bit about that, what is it that, you're doing, and what is it that, solving this problem that we're talking about right now, about being forward thinking, about being a visionary, creating that experience, what is it that you're doing that you're seeing value with at Jenkon?
Very good. So if you know my pedigree at all, anybody that knows me that might be watching as well, I've been in here all my life in direct selling, basically. And so I've been on 5 different technology platforms, and I'm a former Jenkon client. And because I was in the field, because I was an executive, at the level where I was constantly accountable for sales, for driving performance, for growth, double digit, triple, it was my role, pretty much in every role I've had. So, to understand technology and how it intersects, with your business, I know it really well. And so, I stayed in touch, with Jenkon because I grew really strong relationships with the team, took the company. I was with Public on the Jenkon platform, knew it inside and out. And I was surprised actually, because I was out to dinner. Actually, my daughter and we were having dinner with Robert, and he started talking about what had happened, at Jenkon over the last 3 years. That the company I was with after that one was not on a Jenkon platform, had an internal solution. And I was hearing him talking, and Robert, the great thing about Robert Cabot, a lot like most of the people here, has a passion for the direct seller. Sometimes people think about technology and you separate it from the human element. And for Robert, his vision was, we benefit all the big brands, the enterprise clients. That's been the model for years, decades with Jenkon. But he really wanted to create a way to benefit, a startup, a well-funded, intelligent, have a good business plan startup, good product, high integrity, so that they wouldn't have to switch later. Because all of us have been around, many companies who start out like gangbusters. We have a client right now, in their first 2 years of business, went from 0 to 100 million. And they came to us and said, help, because the small platform that they got, because it was very affordable at the time, would not support, would not scale, would not grow with them. Right. And so, we've seen it so many times throughout the years, and it's painful, right? It hurts the heart, because the thousands of lives on the other side of that are being impacted in a very negative and maybe permanent way when it comes to direct selling. So he had created this streamlined version, the JOT, the Jenkon of things. It's a play, obviously, on the Internet of Things. All things that can be connected will be connected, right? All that part of the philosophy that we need to have, all of us need to have now. And so he had created a streamlined version. He was just getting ready to launch it, and I got very excited at the conversation, because it was like I knew that my value proposition inside, what drives me, my core driver, is to make sure that the person that just wants to make $300 a month has a chance to be successful. And anything that I can do on that journey, even if it's behind the scenes, to make sure that person has a dream that doesn't get squashed, has that chance. It appealed to me. And he was so excited, because he said, finally, we can offer this to people at all phases, of their life cycle of a company, and give them a chance to win. Because of all the reasons why companies fail, you don't want technology to be one of them. And you never, as a company, want your vision to be hindered by your technology decisions. It's the biggest, saddest tragedy out there, is to have to stop what's happening because your technology won't support you. It's really a sad thing.
That's the hard part, especially when you're doing everything else right. Mm-hmm. I've heard of companies, we all have these horror stories. As the growth comes, it happens, the technology can't support it. The replicated sites are down for weeks. The back office is down. That can be a very
I've had it happen.
difficult endpoint, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a challenge. And that was, for me, what really stood out from our conversation is, the openness of the platform, being able to allow for flexibility, integration with partners like Verb, and also then also being able to, when they do grow with them, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was, for me, what really stood out. And then also looking at the longevity. Talk to that a little bit, because Jenkon has just this legacy of companies who have been there for decades, a long time. And that also shows, in addition to, what you were showing by having been a customer previously and then going to sell it, that confidence. But talk a little bit about these legacy companies that have been there, and that longevity, and what that can mean when you find the right partnership.
Very good. And it is that, I talk about, you just hate attrition in any business, right? In any business, you just never want to talk about the attrition word and losing, because you work so hard on a relationship and so much, to get everything going. And so, I think, one of the really key successes to that is that collaboration, the conversations and the relationship along the way, and being more than just, okay, plug and play. I know I was talking to someone in Europe that was, they're in the business, in the technology business. And they said, I said, so how do you engage with your clients? I know you're successful. They said, oh, no, we don't. And I said, well, they said, no, we just have it's a standard, they plug it in, and what they have is what they have. And if they don't like it, then they're not a good client for us. And I was like, wow. That's so different, from the Jenkon model, because for us, it's like, we want to grow with you. So we want to have those conversations. And a lot of times, what gets developed, because of course, companies are doing what technology companies are doing, as you know, they're trying to find solutions on their end too. And so they're creatively coming to us with ideas and saying, listen, we want to be able to do this. Can we do this? And we say, absolutely. And so it's that innovative partnership. And then of course, that we can share it with other people, that's the benefit, of course, of accepting, all of the upgrades, that happen, and saying, yes, I totally want in on that. And constantly communicating that, hey, here's what's new. And so we'd like to have those relationship management, meetings with them at least, once a quarter, maybe, twice a year for sure. But, to say, hey, here's what's new in this new rollout, this is how it could impact your business, and having that constant collaborative conversation going about how can we grow together. And maybe they're fine where they are, and it is the right time. And then maybe they're like, oh, wow, I want that for sure. Yeah. I think it's that. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it. It also relates
back, right, to that communication that we talked about earlier, where it's not always easy. There's no client that's with you without having challenges, right? But it goes back to that communication, that relationship, which is the essence of direct selling. So Meredith, thanks for joining us today. I'm so grateful.
Good to be here.
Your friendship, for our partnership, and that you would come on and share these insights. I think there was a lot of value today. So thanks a lot for joining us. We really appreciate you.
Thanks. All right. Carry on. Keep up the good work, everybody.